There is a rule in Formula One this year that was written to help the slowest engine catch up. Right now, it is doing the exact opposite. It has frozen Red Bull in place, locked them out of their own upgrades, and handed the advantage to the team that needs help the least. Mercedes did not break this rule. They read it more carefully than anyone else on the grid. But what they found buried inside it lets them keep Red Bull trapped for as long as they feel like doing it. Here is what Mercedes are actually doing. They have an engine upgrade sitting ready, one the rules have already handed them the right to use, and they are point blank refusing to bolt it on. Not because it does not work, because the moment they run it, Red Bull go free. So they leave it in the building, race after race, and Red Bull stay trapped, on purpose, by the team leading the championship against the team currently fourth. And every piece of it is deliberate. Ferrari have already fitted their upgrade, Audi have already fitted theirs. Mercedes, the one team out in front of everyone, are the only ones sitting on their hands. And it is the smartest thing they have done all year, because that refusal is quietly strangling the whole of the Red Bull season, and Red Bull can do nothing to stop it. To see why one unused upgrade matters this much, you have to understand the trap Red Bull are standing in, and it starts with a single word the FIA takes more seriously than almost anything else on the grid: benchmark. Sitting inside the rules of this new engine era is a system called Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities, ADUO for short, and its job is to rank the engines and decide who is allowed to improve. The strongest combustion engine on the grid becomes the benchmark. Every other engine is measured against it, and whoever sits behind the benchmark is handed help to close the gap. More money to spend, more hours on the test bench, permission to open a frozen engine design and make it faster. Red Bull are the benchmark. On the Sunday of the Monaco Grand Prix, the FIA sends every manufacturer a single page confirming where their engines rank. And the name at the top, the engine the entire grid is now measured against, is Red Bull, a team building its own Formula One engine for the very first time, in partnership with Ford, out of a brand new operation at Milton Keynes. The unit sum in the Paddock report carries the internal codename DM01, is first on the list. On their first attempt, the standard everyone else now has to chase, and being first on that page is the worst thing that could have happened to them, because of what topping the list actually does, because the help only ever flows to the teams that are behind. If you are the benchmark, you are behind nobody, so you receive nothing. No extra budget, no extra bench hours, no permission to upgrade at all. Red Bull, ranked the best engine on the grid, are the one team on it forbidden from touching their own engine. Every rival gets to develop. They do not. The prize for topping the list is a locked door. And the size of what everyone else is unlocking makes that door look even worse. The help comes in tiers. A manufacturer ranked between 2 and 4% behind the benchmark is handed one engine upgrade for this season and another for next. Anyone further back than 4% gets 2 upgrades this year and 2 more next year. Mercedes clear the first tier. Ferrari, Audi and Honda all sit deeper back, which hands each of them the full set. So, around Red Bull, 4 of their rivals are being given permission to reshape their engines across 2 seasons. Some of them twice over, while Red Bull are handed a flat 0. Not a smaller share, nothing. The one team that topped the page is the only team on the grid standing completely still. Which raises the obvious question: how is the 4th fastest car on the grid running the best engine on the grid? Because that is exactly where Red Bull sit right now. After the British Grand Prix, they are 4th in the championship on 128 points, beaten by Ferrari, beaten by McLaren, and beaten most Sundays by the 2 Mercedes cars leading the standings on 333. The slowest of the frontrunners, holding the engine the whole grid is measured against. Those 2 facts should not be able to live in the same sentence. And yet on that page they do. It is worth saying that this page was never meant for the public at all. The FIA has put out no grand announcement, no ranking splashed across the timing screens. The whole picture reaches the outside world through a single leaked sheet, a one-line confirmation sent quietly to the manufacturers, and the briefings that follow it. This is a fight being run almost entirely in private, over a document most fans were never supposed to see, which is part of why the numbers on it carry so much weight. They are not marketing. They are the internal verdict of the sport itself on who is really fastest. And that private verdict is the thing now pinning Red Bull to the floor. The answer is that ADUO does not measure the whole power unit. It measures one half of it, the combustion half, the part that burns fuel and turns a crankshaft. The engines this season are split almost straight down the middle between that combustion power and the electric power from the hybrid system. And the electric side is the big change of the whole new era. The power through the motor on the crankshaft has almost tripled compared to the old rules. So close to half of everything moving these cars now comes from the electric side. And ADUO looks only at the combustion half. The FIA builds its ranking from a set of combustion numbers, the torque coming off the engine, the speed it runs at, the power feeding through that motor on the crankshaft, all weighted for how much each one actually moves lap time. What the ranking never includes is the deployment and recovery side of the hybrid, the energy management, the software that decides when and how the electric power arrives out of a corner, all of it invisible to the measurement. And that invisible half is exactly where Mercedes are quietly taking the field apart. A team can be losing real lap time on deployment, and the ranking will never see it, because it only ever looks at the burning half. So Red Bull hold the strongest combustion engine on the grid and have the fourth fastest car, both true at once, because everything Aduo refuses to look at is where they are losing. The benchmark is real. It just measures a slice of the engine, not the engine that wins races. This new formula only arrived this season, and the sport wrote the catch-up rules straight into it to stop any single manufacturer running away with the next decade the way one or two always seem to. It was built as relief for the teams sitting behind, and that intent is exactly what has been turned inside out. And the cost of the freeze is not some abstract paperwork problem. It bleeds out on track every single weekend. While Red Bull are held in place, their rivals are opening their engines, spending their bench time, and closing the ground the rule says they have to make up. So the gap does not just sit still. Everyone else is allowed to work on it while Red Bull cannot lift a finger, which means the longer the freeze holds, the further the field can pull the combustion picture around them. The rule meant to shrink gaps is quietly protecting the one that hurts Red Bull most. Now here is where being frozen should barely matter, because the freeze is not meant to be permanent. There is a way out, and on paper it looks simple. Red Bull stop being the benchmark the moment another manufacturer overtakes them on that combustion measurement by at least 2%. Someone climbs above them by that margin, Red Bull drop into the catch-up zone themselves, the door opens, and their upgrades unlock. That is the escape hatch built into the rule. All Red Bull need is for one rival to get measurably faster than them on the combustion side. But look closely at that hatch, because there is a cruelty inside it. Red Bull cannot open it themselves. The only way a team normally climbs on that measurement is by developing the engine, and developing the engine is the exact thing benchmark status forbids them from doing. They are not allowed to move at all. Their entire freedom depends on somebody else deciding to pass them. They are a passenger in their own rescue, waiting on a door only a rival can unlock. And look who is standing right there, already quicker overall, already leading the championship by a distance, more than capable of pushing their combustion engine, those 2% clear whenever they choose to. Mercedes, the one team on the grid best placed to overtake Red Bull on that measurement, and pop the lock, is the same team lapping the field every Sunday. On paper, the rescue Red Bull are waiting for is sitting right in front of them in silver, except Mercedes are refusing to do it, and that refusal is the entire game. Look at the position it puts everyone in. Mercedes already hold the right to deploy an engine upgrade. They earned it the second they were ranked behind Red Bull on that page. The upgrade exists, the allowance is theirs. Ferrari have already fitted theirs, jumping on the help the instant it appeared. Audi have already fitted theirs. Every other manufacturer that qualified is spending what the rule handed them. Mercedes, sitting on top of the entire championship, are looking at the exact same allowance and choosing to leave it untouched in the building. And the money they are walking past is not small, which is what makes the choice so loud. The power unit cost cap this season sits at around $215 million, every dollar of it counted to the last. A manufacturer between 2 and 4% behind the benchmark unlocks roughly $3 million of extra room plus around 70 additional hours on the dyno. Fall further back and it climbs, band by band, all the way up to $11 million of relief for anyone 10% or more off the pace. That is real budget and real testing time in a sport where both are rationed to the hour, and where an extra 70 hours on the bench can be the difference between finding a gain and never seeing it at all. Ferrari are spending that help right now. Audi are spending it. Every manufacturer that qualified is pouring the extra money and the extra hours into their engines this season, chasing the benchmark down. And the one team leading the entire championship, the team you would expect to grab every legal advantage going, is sitting on its share and refusing to cash a check already written in its name. Teams do not leave money and testing time on the table in Formula One, not unless what they get for leaving it there is worth far more. They are giving it up for something far more valuable, and you can almost talk yourself into believing they will use it eventually. Surely the fastest team on the grid, offered free money and free bench time, cashes it sooner or later, but the reason they never will is the same reason they qualified for it in the first place. Bringing that upgrade is the one move that cost them everything they have set up. Because the moment Mercedes bring an upgraded engine to a race weekend and officially cross 2% clear of Red Bull, they hand Red Bull the one thing Red Bull need most: the trigger. Overtake Red Bull, and Red Bull stop being the benchmark, and Red Bull unlock their upgrades. The rescue Red Bull are waiting for only ever arrives if Mercedes choose to deliver it, and nothing forces that choice. There is no deadline in the rule that makes Mercedes deploy by a certain race. They can hold it for one weekend or for the rest of the season, entirely as it suits them. The only lever that ends this sits on the other side of the garage, in the hands of the team with the least reason on earth to pull it. Mercedes decide when Red Bull are set free, and Mercedes have every incentive to decide never. So Mercedes simply do not deploy it. They keep developing the engine behind closed doors, on the dyno, in the test cells at Brixworth, banking every gain they find, and they never let the results show up on a race weekend where the FIA takes its measurement. On track, their combustion engine stays officially exactly where it is. Red Bull stay officially first, and Red Bull stay officially frozen, for as long as Mercedes feel like holding the line. So the team winning the championship is choosing not to improve, in public, so that the team fighting for fourth is never allowed to improve at all. And it runs deeper than just Red Bull, because Red Bull are not only frozen, they are the reference point for the entire grid. Every other team has its gap measured off the Red Bull number, so whoever controls where Red Bull sit on that page effectively controls the clock for everyone. Hold Red Bull still, and the whole catch-up system stays frozen with them. Mercedes are not trapping one rival. They are sitting on the button that starts the race to catch up for the entire field, and they are choosing not to press it. That is a staggering amount of power to leave lying inside a rulebook, and only one team has been in a position to pick it up. And they hold this position almost by default, simply by reading the rule to its logical end, while everyone else read it as written. The other teams behind the benchmark treated ADUO exactly as intended. They saw help on offer, took it, started developing. Mercedes looked at the same page and saw that the most valuable thing on it was not the upgrade at all. It was the power to decide when the upgrade counts, and by extension, when everyone else is allowed to move. One team turned a catch-up mechanism into a control mechanism, without breaking a single line of the regulation. Run the whole thing to its end, and it gets stranger still. One respected analysis modeled what happens if every manufacturer behind the benchmark actually uses their help and closes the combustion gap. The rule says they have. Even in that scenario, with the entire field caught up on the combustion side, Mercedes still come out fastest overall. Because the thing that makes them quick was never the combustion engine. It is the half of the car ADUO never looks at. The rule built to close the gap to the leader, followed all the way through, leaves the leader exactly where they started. It does not shrink the Mercedes advantage. It protects the ground underneath it, while everyone else burns their upgrades, chasing a number that was never the real gap. And plenty of people in the paddock have stopped believing this landed by accident. Some of the engineers who study these units closely point out that Mercedes appear to carry the weakest combustion engine relative to how strong their whole car is, which is a very strange thing for the best team on the grid to have, unless some of that combustion performance is being deliberately kept off the table. Sit low enough on the one number that counts, qualify for the help, and keep your real weapon, the electric side, untouched and completely unmeasured. Over at Audi, Mattia Binotto has come closest to saying it out loud. He makes the point that the Mercedes engine is in no way inferior, and that Mercedes may have very cleverly arranged their situation to secure this advantage. He wants the rule itself looked at again. What began as a fairness measure, a way to keep the field together, has quietly turned into a political fight over whether the leader is allowed to game the system meant to reel them in. Rivals are watching the team out in front sit on help it does not appear to need, and asking how a catch-up rule ended up shielding the fastest car on the grid. Red Bull are not taking it quietly either. Their team principal, Laurent Mekies, accepts the method, the idea of judging the combustion engine on its own, and says he is fine with being measured that way. What he cannot accept is the answer. He has said his engineers cannot find a single sample of data anywhere that puts their engine ahead of Mercedes. Not one. They have challenged the verdict, asked the FIA to show exactly how it was reached, and the verdict has not moved a millimeter. Sit in their position for a second, because it is a genuinely bizarre place to be. This is a group that had never built a Formula One engine before this year. Standing up a brand new operation with Ford, and a project like that, normally takes years to become competitive. Instead, they are crowned the best engine on the grid while finishing fourth, unable to celebrate a ranking that is the exact thing hurting them, unable to argue out of it, and forbidden from developing out of it. Every road out is blocked, and the team holding the keys will not say a word. Because Mercedes will not call any of this a strategy, there is no press release, no admission, no moment where anyone in silver stands up and says the plan is to keep Red Bull trapped in a cage of their own upgrades. The line from Mercedes is only that the catch-up rule was always meant to let slower teams close a gap and was never meant to let the leader stretch one further, which is a very careful way of answering nothing at all. They do not need to say it. The standings say it, the frozen upgrades say it, and the untouched allowance sitting inside their engine shop, the one Ferrari and Audi took with both hands, says it loudest of all. And the next test is already coming. The FIA run the measurement again across the races ahead, and every fresh page is another chance for Mercedes to lock the trap tighter, not for Red Bull to slip it. The ground underneath is moving the same way. The engine rules are set to lean even further toward the electric side over the next couple of seasons, the exact half of the car Mercedes already own and A-Duo never measures. So the harder Red Bull are squeezed now, the deeper the hole gets later. Everything ahead bends toward Mercedes, and away from the team stuck at the top of that page. For now though, it holds completely. And it holds because nobody with the power to break it has any reason to. The best engine on the grid belongs to a team fighting for fourth, ranked first on a measurement that ignores half of what wins a race, and the team on top of the entire championship is doing everything in its considerable power to keep it that way, by doing absolutely nothing at all. The one thing that cracks this open is the next page from the FIA, the assessment that decides whether Red Bull stay caged or finally get released. That is the ruling that shapes the rest of this season, and the moment it lands, this channel breaks down exactly what it means, line by line, the second the page is out. Stay with us so you are here when it does.